Yeah, hello everyone. Is my voice audible, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in last session, we have seen, right, how to create a table and how to create this basic form and how to fetch this data from the database. Nothing but your JSON server. Now we have to see this part. Like here, if I type something, if I click on select any city and click on this new user, this data we have to add in the JSON server. Plus that updated data in the JSON server we have to fetch and we have to display here. So first see how we can add this data inside our JSON server. Anybody finished this part? Anybody tried? Okay, so what we are going to do here is, here we have React application, here we have JSON server. Now from here we have to add the data here. So first, let's do one thing. First, let's try to access the data from this text box and drop down button. First, let's try to access the data from text box and the drop down button and store inside a state. Store inside the state. So here we will try to maintain one state, and inside that state, we will try to maintain the data of our text box and this drop down button. So whenever user will enter something here, we will try to store that data inside our state. Whenever user will select any CT, that data also we will try to store inside the state. And we have here one button. So whenever user clicks on that button, the data of state we will try to store inside our JSON server. So the first step is create one state. So I have to go to that new user component. Here I will try to maintain one state. Let stay, I will just say here new user, comma, set new user equals to user state. And in this user state, by default, I will try to maintain one object. In that name, like empty string, and here city with empty string. Let me just check in db.json how we are maintaining name city only. So this is by default, I am maintaining the data in my state. Now what I have to do, whenever user is typing anything in this text box, at that time on change event will be triggered. And from this on change event, we have to access the data. How to access the data? So for that, we can define one function here itself, and we can pass one event object here. So now whenever you type anything in the text box, on change event will be triggered. And whenever on change event is triggered, this function will be called. And in this function, we are taking the event object. So using this event object, we can access the data of the text box. And that data we have to pass to the set new user function. So event dot target dot value, like this you can pass. But if you pass directly like this, in this case, what happens? This text box data, nothing but string will replace this object. So this object will be replaced with a string. So we don't want to replace object. We want this text box data should be added here. So for this, we can create a new object first. In that new object, we can copy this both the properties using your spread operator. And then we can update our name field with event dot target dot value, with event dot target dot value. Now, same thing you can do for your select option as well. And here we want city. Now let's see on click off button, we are able to get that data or not. On click, I will call a function get use new user data. So I'm just passing here function, and that function somewhere here I will define. Simply in the console.log, I will try to print new user. So let's see first of all whether we are able to get the data from text box and drop down button or not. So I will just right click, open, inspect, go to the console, clear all this. Now here I am just typing something like Adi. Your state is not defined. Acha, here our state name is new user, right? Not state. It is a new user. So here it should be new user. In the same way, if I go back here also it should be new user. Because our state name is new user. Clear it. Now here I'm adding Sagar. I'm selecting some city, clicking on this button. Now here one object printed with the name Sagar, city, C4. Now this object we have to give to the JSON server. This object we have to give to the JSON server. How to give to the JSON server this object? For this, we are going to send one request from our client application, that is React application, to this JSON server. And with this request, we are going to send that data. And to send this request, we required Axios library. And this Axios library is going to provide us one predefined function called post. So whenever you want to send some data from your client to server, then we are going to do the post request. And to do the post request, this Axios library provides us one predefined function called post. Now this post function will take two arguments. The first argument is basically three arguments. The first argument is your URL. Second argument is the data which you want to send. Third argument is if you want to send any uh, metadata, then that data you can send in the third argument. So third argument is completely optional. So if you want to send any headers information about your data, like metadata, then you can send here. So this is how we do the post request. Whenever you do the post request, again, same thing, post request will send, it will return one promise object. And in that promise object, we will have a data. So we have to handle that data. Same like a get, we have to handle that data. Nothing but handle the promise. So if you go back here we want to send the request. So I will import Axios from Axios. Now here simply I will do Axios dot post. So here the first argument is your URL. So URL will be http://localhost 3000 same URL /result. So it's result or results. Just check. Same URL. What URL you have done for the get, same URL you have to send here as well. For JSON server, we have same URL, but in real time URLs will change. For post request, you will have some URL. For get request, you will have some other URL, and that information will be given by backend developers to you. So backend developers will tell to do get request, this is the URL. To get post request, this is the URL. So we have to just pass that URL. When it comes to JSON server, here the URL will be same. So here axios.post, you have to add the URL as a first argument, and second argument is our data. So our data is present in this state called new user. So directly we can pass new user. If you want to pass headers, then just add comma, add one object here, then headers, property, object, its value also. Then here you can pass the metadata. So right now we don't require to pass any metadata. So it's like an optional part. But if you want to pass any metadata like headers of your request, then you can pass here, which will be third argument. So right now I'm removing this part. We don't require. So we require only first two. So whenever you do axios.post, now what this axios is going to do, this axios will send a request to JSON server. Now JSON server will receive your request. With request, they will receive the data. They will access that data from request and they will add inside this JSON server. Whether the data got successfully added or not, whatever it might be, now this JSON server is going to send response back to Axios. It will send response back to Axios. Now what Axios will do? It will receive the response from your JSON server. Then it will create one promise object. It will create one promise object. In that promise object, it will add that response. And then this Axios will return that promise object to us. It will return that promise object to component. This is how the flow will be. That is the reason people say that whenever you call this axios.post, it is going to return one promise object. It will return one promise object. If it is returning one promise object, just handle that promise object. You can handle that promise object. So here I am just adding one callback function. Here also I am adding one callback function. If there is any issue, then simply we will add one alert here. We'll say user, new user is not created. And whatever error is there, we will try to print that. If successfully user gets added in your JSON server, then that success response will come here. So let's see what is that success response. Save it. If you go back here, let me refresh. Let me clear all this. Add here Raj. Select some C4 and click on new user. Now see, here we got this success. This means successfully this user is added. This user is added in your JSON server. And in response, we got one object. In that object, we got some properties here, like your headers information, request information, status 200. So it indicates that successfully action has been performed. And here they are sending some data. Same data they are sending. City, name, and if you see, one ID got generated. Now this ID is generated by your JSON server. Automatically, your JSON server generating one ID. Now let's see in our db.json file whether this data got added or not. So you can just open db.json file. And if you see here, data should be added. So here Raj, CT, C4 with ID value. Successfully we are able to add. So let's try to add some other data. I will add here Sneha. I will select the CT, C2, click on new user. Now again, if I just go back to my JSON server, now see here Sneha also got added. Sneha is also added. Sneha, here Raj, S5 like this. I will try to add one more Adi, C5, new user. Again, if I go back, here we got added. So let's do one thing. Once user is successfully able to add, let's just show one alert message at least. Alert, we will say that successfully new user created. Now here, I will just add Sagar and click on new user. Successfully new user is created. So now user is creating, that new data is getting added in your JSON server, but that is not updated in this table. Now I want that updated data should reflect in table as well. So whenever you add here any data and click on new user, then this data should be reflected in table as well. So to reflect this data in table, what we have to do now? What we have to do from here? Anyone have any idea what we have to do here?
I think call the user service. So he will fetch from the updated data.
What we have to call?
User component.
Yeah. So basically, we have to call this function. Get users we have to call. Okay. Now this function, now the scenario is like this. You have two components. You have users component and you have new users component. And right now there is a function called get user. There is a function called get user, which we have defined under users component. We have a function called get users, which we have defined right now under users component. But now our requirement is this function we want in this component also. So now the question is how you will share this function with user component also and with new user component also. So this function is defined right now in users component. Now this function we want in new user also. Why we want in new user? Because in new user we are sending the request to a server to add new user. We are doing axios.post. So once we get this alert message, successfully new user is created. Now we want to fetch the latest data of the server. So to fetch the latest data of the server, you have to call get users. You have to call get users. You have to call get users. And one more, suppose from here you are calling this get users from this component. Let's assume that you are calling get users. Now you will get all the latest users data. Now that users data you should not give, you should not, we cannot display in the new user. That latest data somehow again from this component we have to pass to this component. Then only you can display here, because in this component only you have a table. So first question is how to make this function available to new user. Then whatever data you will receive from server, how to pass that data to user. Now this function user has to share with new user. Whatever data new user will receive, that data it needs to share with users. So what we have to do? So whenever you want to pass the data from one component to another component, first try to find the relationship between them. Then only you will be able to find the solution, how to pass. So can you guys tell me what is the relationship between user and new user?
Sibling.
Yeah. For that, let me go to that routing part. And here, if you see, they are like siblings. So if they are siblings, then what you can do? How to pass the data between components if they are in the sibling relationship?
Context.
Mhm.
Can we can use the context, right?
Context is not used for sibling relationship, right?
The app component we have to call, right?
We can use Redux. If you want to go, we can use Redux. Or else what we can do is this get users component, this get users function, instead of creating in the user component, we can create one parent component for this both, for like user home, for example. We can create one parent component called user home. User home. And inside this user home, we can render this both the components. We can render this both the components. And inside the user home, we can define that get users function. And now this get users function, we can share with the users also. We can share with the new user also. With the new user also. And whatever state you are maintaining in user, that state again you have to maintain here. Because once you send the request to a server with the get user, and whatever you got the data, first you are storing in the state, right? That state we are defining in the users. Because in the users, we have a table. And to create this table, that state is required. So what we will do, that state we will define here. And this state, again, we will pass to this users. We will pass to the users. So let's go step by step. First, let's create one user home component. So in this JSON server only, we will create one home user or user home dot JSX. This is user home component. Inside this, we have to call users component and we have to import new users component. Now here we have to render it. So what we will do, we will go to the app, we'll go to this app, we will copy this and we will paste here. And here we will render this new home user. So now we don't require this imports here. Import user home, and that user home we will render here. Still there is no change in the output. Now what we will do, we will go to that user.jsx. Here we define this function, right? Get users. So we will remove this function from here and we will define that function in the user home here. Now here we are using the state. So what we will do, again that state also we will remove from there. And this use effect, let it be. Let's first remove the state from here. And that state we will paste here. So for that, we have to import use state here. So we are just moving that get users and users in the parent component. Now, why we are moving? Because this get users, now you can share with user also and new user also. That's why we are trying to define in the parent component. And state, because once we send the request to a server, once we get the data, that data we need to update in this state. And that state, again, maybe in future you might require in some other components also. That is the reason, again, we are defining in parent only. And that state also we will pass, and this function also we will pass to this users as a props. So what we will do here, we will pass get users. So what is the function name here? Get users only. That get users we will pass as a props. And here users. We will pass users. Now this get users we will receive in users component as a props here. So I will just destructure it. Get users, that is, and users. Because here we are creating the table, right? Here we require that users for comparing this length. And here also we required users. That's why we are getting that users and get users as a props. So let's see whether it is working or not. So here it is giving issue. Let's see what is that issue. Yes, Axios is not defined because here we are using Axios, right? So that we have to import here. Here we have to import Axios because this get request logic we have written in the home user. Now if I go back here, we got it. Now here in the users, we are not using Axios right now. So we can remove it. Use state we are not using. Remove it right now from here. Now same get user function we can give to our new user component as well. To this new user also I can pass this get users. Now new user will also receive that get user as a props. Now what this new user will do, once he receives this message, successfully new user is created, then he will call, let me remove this console now, then he will call get users. Get. Here it should be get users, right? What we have passed here, get users only. So here we have to say get users. So this get users we have to call here. That's the same function we wanted to into different components which are in sibling relationship. So instead of defining that function here, we are defining in the parent component, so that this function you can pass to this component as a props and this component as a props. If you keep here only, then you have to do redux kind of thing, or you have to create services, export, import, this kind of you have to do. So instead of that, in parent component, we are defining. Now let me try here. Now let's suppose I am adding here some data like S0 and selecting CT as C1 and clicking on new user. Successfully new user is added, and let's see whether in the table the data got updated or not. Now see, in the table S0 got updated. Now I will remove this S1 to S5 manually, because in that we don't have ID. So this S1 object I want to remove manually. S2 object I want to remove manually. This S3 I want to remove. And then S4 I want to remove. In S5 I want to remove. So all this we added manually. That manual data I am removing. Now if I go back here and if I just refresh, yeah, again we have done some manual changes in our JSON server. So we have to stop and restart the server. So let me clear and let me restart it. Once I restart, again if I refresh, then those changes will come. So now we have only Raj, Sneha, Adi, Sagar is 0. Let me try to add new data here. Something like Rohan, Sharma, and CT I am selecting C3. The moment I click on new user, now Rohan Sharma should be updated in table also. Successfully new user is created. If I say OK, that Rohan Sharma is getting added here. Successfully, we are able to add the Rohan Sharma. Now your task is, once Rohan Sharma is updated in table, then you have to clear this data. You have to clear this data. Right now, I am not clearing this text box and this CT. You have to clear it. You have to make it empty, and this you have to by default make as a select CT. You have to make it as a select CT. That is your task. One more task. Suppose here I am just selecting like a select CT, and here I am trying to add some data like this randomly and click on new user. Then if I go back here, now see in my CT, it is adding select CT. So this select CT should not be added in our JSON server. So that part also you have to handle. Now all these are logic part. So here you don't require any React concepts. You have to logically think and you have to restrict that part. So how to do that? That part you have to think and you have to do. If you're not able to do, then I will explain, but first you guys have to try it. Now here we are able to do post request. So how to do post request? It's very simple. Just we have to do axios dot post, and to this post, first argument will be URL. Second argument will be the data that you want to send. And third argument is optional. Right now we don't require. But if you want to pass any kind of meta information to your server, then that you can pass through your third argument. So third argument will be object, and in that object you can pass your meta informations. So this is how we do the post request. Now in the same way, we want to do the delete request now. The moment I click on delete, this user should be deleted. Now if you want to do the delete request, then Axios is providing us one predefined function called delete. So we can call this delete function. Now to this delete function, we have to pass our URL, and in that URL, we have to pass ID of the user. Which user you want to remove, that user ID you have to pass as a path parameter. For this delete request, you have to pass one argument, that is one URL. And in that URL, you have to pass the ID of the user, which user you want to remove, as a path parameter. So when we want to do this delete operation, if you click on this delete button, now this delete button is present in users component. So let's go to that users component. Now here we have this table. In this table, we have here that delete button. So whenever you click on this delete button, I want to call a function called delete user. Now I don't have this delete user, so I will define that function somewhere here. Delete user. It means whenever I click on that delete button, this function will be called. Let's see. I will just add here delete. I will say deleted, just for checking purpose. If I click on this, I got deleted. If I click on this, I got deleted. If I click on this, I got deleted. So whenever you click on this delete button, you are able to call this function. Now in this function, what we have to do? We have to write the logic to send a delete request. So to send a delete request, first we require Axios here. So import Axios. Then this Axios will provide us one delete function. Now to this delete function, we have to pass only one argument, that is your URL. URL here also, it will be same. What is that? Same http://localhost 3000/results. Here URL is same, but in real time URL will be different, and that information will be given by backend developer. So we need not to worry. So this is the URL. Now with this URL, we have, after this path, we have to send path parameter. Here we have to add slash, and we have to send the ID of the user. Which user you want to remove, that user ID you have to send. Now the question is, how to send a dynamic data in a URL or in a string. If you have a string like this, and in that if you want to pass a dynamic data, how to do? For that, simply in this string, we have to take in backticks. Instead of double quotes, we have to take our string in a backticks. That is the first step. Data which you want to pass dynamically, there you have to use this notation, $curly braces. And here you can pass your dynamic data. So whenever I call this function, I want to get the ID. I want to get the ID here as a path, as a parameter. And this ID I want to send here. It means whenever we are calling delete user, we have to pass the ID of the user as an argument. So where we are calling delete user, we are calling here. But here we cannot pass ID. So what we can do here is inside this curly braces, we can define one function. Inside that function, we can call delete user like a normal function. Now here we have to pass ID. So how to get the ID here? Using this element. So using this element, we are accessing name city and we are displaying in the table. Using that element only, we can get ID as well. Because in our db.json, here we are storing ID also. And this ID is created by default by your JSON server. So that ID we can pass here. How to pass ID? Simply we have to say element.id. Now that ID will come here. Now again same axios.delete also will return one promise. Again then and catch. Again both will take callback functions. Here also callback function. Here I will add error if something went well. And here alert failed to remove user, I will say. And whatever that issue might be, that we will try to print it. Console.log of error. And here we will get some response. We will say alert user deleted successfully. Right. So let's try here. If I click on this Raj, user deleted successfully. Now see in table, it is not updated. But if you go to the db.json, the first data should not be Raj now. Now see, the first data is Sneha now. Now let me do one thing. Let me delete Sneha also. If I click on this, user deleted successfully. If I go back to my db.json, now see first data is Adi. So Sneha and Raj both are removed. It means again your JSON server got updated, but your table is not getting updated. Why? Because we are not fetching the latest data after deleting. So here after deleting the user, we are not fetching the latest data. So what I want to do, I want to fetch the latest data. So how to fetch the data? For that already we have imported get users as a props. So just let's call the same get users once more. Now if I go back here, now see, if I click on this last data, select city, user deleted successfully. The moment I say okay, it should be removed. Here it should be removed. Run, it is removed. So here we are able to do post request. We are able to do the get request. How to do get request? It's very simple. Just axios.get and just pass the URL. But make sure which user you want to remove. That user ID you have to pass. This is the only extra thing in the URL compared to get and post. If you don't pass ID, then JSON server will not come to know which user it has to remove. So that's why it's important to pass ID. It's important to pass ID. Understood, guys? Yeah, anyone, any doubts, any confusion? Next one is your edit. If you click on this edit, first of all, this data we have to attach to this particular form. And what I want to do, this name I want to change from new user to update user. And this button content also I want to change from new user to update user. So whenever I click on this button, I want to change this title, I want to change this button content, and this both the data should be appended to this particular text box and your drop down button. And then whenever, if you want to update, you will update the data, and then you will click on that update user button. The moment you click on update user button, that data should be exactly updated here. That data should be exactly updated here. So first thing what you guys have to do is, if you click on edit, you have to change this title to the update user, and you have to change this button content to the update user. That is the first task. Second task is, if you click on edit, anyways you are changing title and button content. At the same time, whatever data you have here, that data you have to show on the text box and this drop down button. It means this data you have to append here. That is the second task. Third task, you will do some updates here. You will modify the name or change the city, and you will click on update user button. Now that data you have to update in JSON server, and that data should be reflected in your table as well. That data should be reflected in your table as well. That is the third task. Okay. Can you guys try this task by your own? So tomorrow you have one day. So if you guys are able to do, great, or else on Monday, I will explain you about the edit operation, how to do the edit operation. So for this, we have to send the put request. So how to do the put request, how to edit it, all those things we will see on the Monday. Okay. Once we are done with this, then we will have a look on our syllabus. Let's see if something is missing. Then we will try to cover that part. Yeah, that's all guys from my end. If you have any doubts, let me know. In case if you don't have any doubts, yeah, you guys can drop and let's join on Monday. So yesterday I was not able to take session, right? That is the reason I took today's session. Suddenly yesterday my laptop got switched off and it was not charging as well.
Okay. Sir, class notes, are you posting daily basis, sir?
Yes, I'm posting.
Okay.
Okay.
Which folder should I find, sir?
GitHub link. You don't have GitHub link?
Yeah, I do have in that class notes or which folder?
Same class wise you have folders, right? In that. If I just go to that GitHub, here, class wise you have folders, session wise. Okay. What?
Yeah.
Session 30. So today is 31 session. Till session
Yes.
30 I have updated. If you just double click on this, you will get all the things here.
Yes, sir. In that notes or which folder should I follow, sir?
Here, paint file. Here I'm updating paint file, right now.
Okay.
So this is the paint file right now, notes for us. At the end of your batch, I will update some PDFs here.
Okay. Because okay, thank you, sir. I think I have to install some supporting system.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you.
for accessing GitHub, you don't require anything. Just you can,
Yeah.
whatever URL I have given, just paste it in your ad browser.
Mm.
You will land on that page. Okay.
Okay.